Matt, you can check the stream because I know how you are. You get really upset about it.
You know how I am. Outstanding.
We are on time. Apparently, we're on time. Can you see us live, Matt? That is the question.
I am looking as we speak.
Are we live? This is always the just the part where you just hope.
We are on live.
We are on live.
We're live.
We're here. Perfect. Well, hi everyone. I know you're all a bit shocked that they're on time, but
I'm shocked.
We made it. Welcome everyone to episode 5 of HR Leaders Live, the show where we discuss the future of work with today's most innovative and successful people leaders. As always, my name is Chris Rainey, co-founder of HRD Leaders and host of the HR Leaders podcast. On today's show, we'll be talking about how to attract better talent in 2018. As always, I'm joined by Matt Burns, Chief HR Officer over at Yisk. How are you doing, Matt?
Good morning.
Good morning. And Jill Katz is back from holiday. She's finally joined us today.
Tan, ready, and rested. Happy
Perfect. And our special guest, JT O'Donnell, CEO of Work It Daily, LinkedIn influencer, social media master. That's what I'm going to brand you as.
I don't think so.
Okay, so let's kick things off with the question: how can we better attract talent for our businesses in 2018? As always, I'm going to be really start off with Matt because he hates it.
It's tradition, JT. Chris likes to stick me with the first question to see if I will falter. And up to this point, I'm 4 for 4 for not faltering. So let's keep the streak going. The question was again, what, Chris?
How can we better attract talent in 2018?
Be real. So I think I've talked a lot about this the last couple of weeks on social media, primarily on LinkedIn. It's about authenticity nowadays. It's about making sure that your inside voice in the organization mirrors your outside voice, which does include employment branding. And what that means is that you need complete alignment with the way you're positioning your organization, both internally and externally. The last thing you want nowadays, well, frankly, you've ever wanted is to have a misalignment between your candidates' expectations and what's actually going to happen in the role. So it's just so absolutely critical that you spend the time up front to be transparent, be authentic with the candidate, and give them the behind the scenes look of what it's going to be like to work in your organization. They're going to find out anyway, so better to find out up front where everyone has an opportunity to ask follow-up questions and see if it's the right fit. Let's be clear. Some of our best applicants, some of our best candidates are individuals who say, I want the challenge. So don't be shy about sharing some of those big opportunities you have in your organization. It does open up the window to have individuals who want to take on those challenges. There are individuals who simply just want that type of pressure and want the type of career. So my first advice would be just to be very upfront, be very authentic.
Fantastic. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It looks different here than it does in St. Kitts. I think that I would call out 3 things. I would call out benefits, perks, and culture, which I think are becoming more and more important to candidates today. I think that it's sort of the price of entry that there are basic, really good, solid benefits that a company offers, and usually that is medical, dental, etc. But I think that there are other benefits that companies are now putting out that are more and more important, and that oftentimes touches on work-life blend, extended parental leave, flexible work hours, ability to work remotely. These are all things that are becoming more and more important, I believe. Perks, people really want to hear about perks, but sometimes they're, I think, afraid to ask. So I've heard of companies that have everything from full service kitchens or cafeterias with discounted food to yoga rooms, meditation rooms, mothering rooms. There's a company I recently read about that has a music room where people can go and play piano or touch whatever instrument brings them joy during the day, which I think is fantastic. And then I think culture, which we've spent a lot of time talking about here on the show. And at the end of the day, the research is showing more and more that candidates really want to know what the daily routine feels like. Is it laid back? Is it about authenticity? Is it about hard work and competition? Once all of the excitement has sort of died down, what does it feel like to work in that company every day?
Amazing. I don't want to have to keep saying to everyone, JT. So feel free to jump in, guys.
Dive in.
Interrupt me. You know, we have no rules on this show. That's one of my favorite rules is there's no rules.
Cool. Yeah. So I would agree with the transparency and the benefits and the perks. One of the things that we're seeing with our clients, it's really competitive these days. So everyone's doing employment branding. Everyone's starting to try to sell their story, tell their story. What I'm telling people to do is figure out exactly why people aren't bothering to speak with you. So if your traction is down, if candidates are not taking your phone calls, not responding to your emails, you need to figure out why, because it's their choice right now. They can choose where to work and they're doing their research online. And 60% of the time when they decide to respond to you, they've already figured out in their head, hey, I do want to work for this company. So if that's the case, you have to ask yourself, what's missing? The people that aren't responding to my emails, aren't taking my phone calls, what are the objections they have? Because they're essentially your customer. And so now you've got to sell to the objections, or as we say, educate them so that to remove that objection. So great example is we have a client right now, they're losing out on candidates because of the structure, what people are reading on Glassdoor and sort of the structure of the business. So they have to sell against that. And what they've done is triple down on the amount of employment branding content they've created to help reveal this other side of them. So the campaign is the 10 things you didn't know about. And then they insert that company and really are just driving home this content to sell against that, so that somebody who would normally dismiss the opportunity with them is saying, wait a minute now, here's some information to counterbalance that. I'm going to give them at least the benefit of the doubt and take that phone call or respond to that email, which is really what every recruiter has to be thinking about right now. We already know why people aren't bothering to talk to us. We know the weak spots of our business. We know we're not perfect, that there's warts, whatever. We need to sell head on that. We usually wait till we get them on the phone to do that. You don't have that luxury anymore. You've got to do that selling through your social media, through your employment brand.
So what are some of the costs that we mentioned, cafeterias, music rooms, even slides coming down from one to another, for companies that don't have millions of pounds to do all of these things? What are some sort of cost-effective ways that we can actually increase our brand awareness and attract talent from your experience?
Chris, I'll jump in before you pick on me again. Because it's coming. We all know it's coming. So I'll just preempt that. One thing I just want to mention.
I do like it when it comes, just for the record.
And that's why he does it, because he knows it entertains you. In terms of the last question, just one thing to add. I think one thing I've seen in the last 2 to 3 years, a lot more than I did in the previous 15 that I've worked in this industry, is the amount of people you're competing with that are not competing with other employers. So I nowadays probably get once a week someone in an interview process letting me know that they're considering an opportunity in our organization, but they're balancing it against freelance contracted consultancy work. And that's not for people that have 20 years of experience. These are individuals that may have just come out of university or maybe have 5 years of experience. So the gig economy, if you will, is an absolute competitive influence in our industry. And we have to be mindful of that. We're not just competing with the retailer down the street. We're competing with people who are looking for that work-life balance. And if they can't find it in a traditional corporate environment, they're going to try and source it themselves. So I think that's really, really important. In the same way retailers had to figure out how to adjust to competing with online pure play retailers themselves, we have to do exactly the same thing from an employment branding perspective. You can hop on Upwork or Freelancer or a number of other those sites and get full-time income if you have a good quality service and do a good job branding yourself. So for retailers and employers in general right now, you have to be mindful of that. Back to your question, Chris, around inexpensive things. I worked with an individual back at a previous employer. His name is Adrian. So if he's watching, hi, Adrian. He had a great catchphrase that I love, which was, Jill says hi too. I mean, that in and of itself, it should be a reward enough. But one of the great things that Adrian brought to our organization was a great catchphrase. That was, you can't barbecue your way to engagement. Meaning you can put on all the fancy parties you want and have all those cool rooms, but if it's not reinforced by authenticity and the culture, which is, by the way, free, those materials and those perks don't amount to much. So I would say, Chris, just to start with, being authentic and being real about creating an inclusive culture in your business that's founded on respect, I think goes a long way. And then you can reinforce that and provide examples of that through things like, catered meals or those perks that we've talked about. But those things in and of themselves collect dust if the culture in and of itself isn't engaging environment.
What do you mean by authentic? It's a word that's thrown around a lot, and everyone says you should be vulnerable. You should show people, your warts and all and everything. And it's easy for us to say, and it's easy because I hear it all the time. But then how do you find that balance between bearing all and actually, selling the opportunity? Because there is a part of that's never going to go away. It's so competitive now that there has to be that element of competition, but you don't want to go too far and missell the job, which we've seen so many times, haven't we? Where people, they get into the role and 3 weeks later, all of that wears off, like you just said, and they're like, oh my God, this is it. For the next few years, I'm here. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how many perks you have, you end up losing the talent straight away. So how do we find that balance of being honest? And what does being honest about your company look like? What does that look like? How do you do that?
Well, I would jump in there. I really liked, JT, your recommendation on the 10 things that you wouldn't know about. I think that is such a smart approach, because it is the case that all candidates now have the benefit of being able to access an amount of information about what the workplace feels like or looks like before they even come in the door for an interview. And I think that, touching on authenticity by going out there and saying, here are 10 things you wouldn't know, you are actually opening the kimono in a sense. And surprising people are so interested to hear more things that they wouldn't be able to access on their own. I think that probably in telling people things that you wouldn't know before, you are probably exposing some things that are truths that feel more and more authentic. And Chris, to your point, the truth is they're going to access the information somewhere. They're going to find it on Glassdoor. They're going to go through LinkedIn and find a friend of a friend of a friend who works at the company. And so I think that by framing things and working more and more closely with communications experts in today's working world, it is critical to just kind of say it like it is. Now, I don't suggest that companies bear their dirty laundry. There are always things happening in organizations that need to stay inside the organization. But a basic culture statement, missions and values, statements from employees are all things that can help people really understand what it means to work in that organization.
Yeah, I'll actually share with you an exercise that we do with clients just to help them get a framework around this. We call it employment branding bingo. It's pretty straightforward, 5 across, 5 down. So the 5 across are the 5 main areas that studies show job seekers are interested in understanding about you. So my company actually works with the job seekers and understands and studies what do they research, what do they need to know to pull the trigger and actually choose to apply to your job. And it comes down to 5 key areas. Leadership, who's driving the bus, what's that like? Coworkers, who am I going to be hanging out with all day? Can I see collaborating with them? Do I feel part of their tribe? Values and beliefs, we just heard that absolutely in terms of what do they stand for? Fun factor, how do they bond as a team, right? What's the fun that they have? And then the wow factor. And that's the thing that if I'm telling someone I work at that company, what am I proud of? How do I describe that company so that I'm proud to say I work there? If you were to take those 5 and then below it, you've got 5 rows, go over to your Glassdoor page, go over to your LinkedIn profiles where you've, pulled content about your brand, go to all the places where your brand exists and look for comments and quotes and statements that fall into each one of those categories and fill your bingo card. When you're done, if you think about that, you're going to have 5 things about leadership, 5 things about coworkers, values, beliefs, etc. When you look at those 25, you will feel and see and hear patterns in what's being said there. That's how you identify what to reveal about your culture. You don't have to make up anything. It's already been documented out in the universe. What we're proposing is taking all that data, putting it together into a format that visually helps you understand what the themes are to your organization. Then go and work off those themes. Such an easy way for you to see that and share it with others.
Amazing. Love that answer. And here's why I love that answer.
Because I love that too.
The company creating a cultural message. That's the culture identifying what it is itself. And then you're just giving a forum for that conversation. So we talked about authenticity about 7 times in this call. That's a perfect example of doing that. People can tell when it comes from a marketing function or an HR function and it's canned. That, as long as it's positioned properly, would be a really easy and effective way to talk about your employment brand.
And also you can see the gaps, right? immediately you're going to
Exactly.
go, oh, actually, we don't have anything there at all.
Right. And there's 5 or 6 great things about us. And here, none of it is being displayed. Quickly, you start to see, and that goes back to my earlier comment about figuring out what you need to sell against, right? You might not have the right information out there.
I love that idea. And, Chris, you asked an earlier question about what happens when you don't have tremendous budgets. And a lot of that is a free
Exactly.
and quite valuable exercise. So I think that is fantastic. Thanks for that suggestion.
We spoke about this last time on the podcast, JT, because that was one of the things that I was so excited about. In fact, that was actually the most shared video we've had to date of what you just shared. So I'm not surprised as well. So I'm really happy you shared this on the live show for people that haven't heard about it as well. One of the things I see I know, Matt, you've done some experimentation with video, right? On your side. And I think the formats change massively now. I think some companies that I'm working with don't even do a job spec anymore. Or they're just relying on video and audio and stuff like that. And of course, it isn't a skill set traditionally known with the functions. So it's like a bit of an unknown in some cases. And I know, Jill, I know JT, you're working with a few companies to help them on that. Could you share some more about that?
Yeah. So, the big thing we've all realized, right, is that we need this content on a regular basis, but recruiters aren't marketers and their marketing departments are pretty busy already. And so when we went out and said, what's holding you back from doing this? It's not that they didn't get it. They didn't understand employment branding. They just didn't have the bandwidth or the expertise. So that's actually what my company does now. We've set companies up on subscription model, and it's a content subscription. We create X number of pieces of content per week, per month for them. And then they're able to distribute it on all their social channels. So we were able to close that gap, which is great. They don't have to hire a full-time person. They don't have to train someone, it's there. So you're seeing more and more of that in the space. And I think everyone out there that's listening to this, you need to start to look for those solutions that can help you, because the one thing that's not going to go away is this need to create content. For better, for worse, it's here for good. And, I've had some people say to me, well, just wait till the market correction comes. Just wait till, unemployment specs cracks
Honestly,
me up.
I had an argument about this on the weekend. I went for dinner with someone and he was like, no, it's going to go back to blogs and written. And I was like, no,
absolutely not.
I was like, do you think LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook just made an absolute guess and gone, let's just switch to videos or just risk our $1 trillion companies? Why not? We'll just switch over to video.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, any buying decision that you make these days that costs more than $1, you probably do a quick Google search on it, an internet search, right? You're on Amazon, and then the same product comes up 17 times on Amazon, all with different prices. You're trying to understand, why are they different prices, right? We have taught ourselves, we owe it to ourselves to do this research. Job seekers are the same way, and it's going to be even more so in a down economy. Even more so, they're going to want to say, what does that company like to work for? How do I get that job? They're going to crave that info. But more importantly, why wouldn't you? Do you want good talent? Do you want the right people to knock on your door? Are you sick of thousands of applications that are completely useless? Well, then start producing more content, because you're going to self-select. You're going to get people to not bother because they're going to realize they're not for you. And that's really the biggest bonus of doing this. When you get in the habit of that, content will do all the heavy lifting in your sourcing process for you. You'll see fewer candidates, but at much higher quality levels.
Mm-hmm. When you mentioned
Chris, every time we talk about this, we always talk about the blend between HR and marketing. It always
it keeps coming up, doesn't it? It's so important.
It's real. You referenced the fact that we've done some unique things here at YISC involving an iPhone and just me, self-shooting a job posting that accompanies written text. That's had a big effect, and we're doing more of that. I would share that we're also considering a plan where we have employees shoot ads for us.
Even better. It's so much more powerful. It comes from the people that are doing it. Imagine that's the job you're going for, and the actual person saying, this is my opinion. This is what it actually is. I'm much more likely to respond to something like that. Yeah.
And another free incentive to build culture, because the people believe in what you're trying to push in the marketplace, and they're your employees and they're engaged. They want to participate in some cases. To answer the question around kind of video and all that, I think we're in a stage now. I agree, video is not going away. In fact, we have to meet the customer, and in this case, also the employee or candidate, where they are. That may mean video, that may mean audio, that may mean written. The reality is you have to do everything. So that is the game nowadays. And, video content is great, except when you're driving. So you need audio, and audio content is great if you want to see somebody's face. And sometimes you just want to sit on a couch and read. So you need to provide content in all forms. But I agree with JT. The content piece is not going away. And for those that think it is, it's going to be a rude awakening 6 months, 12 months from now, when those that have jumped on this bandwagon are clearly ahead from employment.
I think we're already there now.
Yeah,
we're there now. Like, when me and Shane we're a startup, this company. But when I did a post out saying, we're looking to recruit some people, so many people came back to one. It wasn't a paid ad or a paid recruitment ad or anything like that. And as you said, holding up a phone and recording yourself, it doesn't cost anything. And you can go and edit that in the same on your phone. You can edit that, clip it at the beginning, clip at the end, post. I think the problem is so many companies are trying to get this perfect. They're like, I'm not going to mention the client name, but 100,000 plus employee company that I was speaking to recently. They hired a production company to come in and create all of these videos that we're talking about, and they've spent, I don't even know how much, but a lot of money and they're basically creating a video for every single one of their jobs that they have available. And you didn't need to bring in an entire production company and professionally record everything. Like, some of the most raw videos you see now on LinkedIn are the ones that go viral, where someone's just grabbed someone out of nowhere and they're like, boom, just talk and off the cuff, because that's normal. That's how people are in real life. And no one stands there and with a perfect like setting and says, hi, my name is this. It's just not real, and people don't buy into that as well. So definitely.
Well, I think it all comes back to this word. It's all now about authenticity. It's about, what is it really like to work in a place? How are people really communicating with one another? And I think, Sanyan Singh is a great example. Yeah. She is an incredible LinkedIn influencer who we speak with on this show, and most of her videos are happening right here, right on the spot.
Yeah.
And again, it's free and it feels real and it makes things feel more accessible and more human. And so I giggle a little bit at the production company, because I think that, certainly in large industries, we are in the process now of moving from this concept of over preparedness and the meeting before the meeting and then the meeting after the meeting and all the work that's put into making things so production perfect. And we're really finding more and more that imperfect and human and authentic is far more attractive.
Well, and I'll just,
sorry, go ahead, JT.
Well, no, I'm just going to chime in and say, and make the business case for why, I certainly don't want you to produce awful stuff, but that idea of quantity, of course. Quantity over quality, right? I was at a digital marketing class at a university earlier this week, and they were sharing a study that now shows that the average consumer needs to take in about 43 pieces of content.
What?
Before they make a decision.
43.
So, right. Do you remember? It used to be like 7 or 9.
I remember it used to be like a couple of interactions.
But now think about it. We're bombarded with imagery. We're on several different social platforms a day. Our attention and the retention is so low that it's gone to 43 times. So if you take that and think about that in the employment world, someone's actively job seeking, you need to be pumping stuff out every day, if not multiple times a day, because if they're following you on LinkedIn or Glassdoor, guess what? They're thinking about working for you. And the faster you get content in front of them and hit to that 43, the more likely they're going to apply. I've seen people say they've been following a company for months before they decide they want to apply. Months. And it's because the company hasn't given them enough to go on. So that's a case in itself to just triple down on your content production and get it out there.
We've already been doing the same thing in sales and marketing for years now.
Right.
And we talked about this on the last show. It's completely transferable. It's exactly the same thing. You need, and I'm using it in our business. I'm using it both to provide value to our customers and also to attract talent too. It's the same. And by the way, it's the same content. It's very authentic. They know who I am. They only have to say Chris Rainey, CEO, HR, and all of a sudden there's like 50 videos. Yeah. I can't really then pretend that we're something we're not, and that the environment is. They know exactly who you are and they can gauge that straight away. But I'm very surprised that figures dramatically jumped. Actually,
Can I throw something out there to all your listeners? Because I would love to see if anybody's doing this yet. I've seen it in a couple places, and it's something we're looking at exploring with our clients. So we do webinars. You opt in for a webinar, and it's a really concentrated subject or tutorial or whatever you want to call it. I think the future for some employers is to have a tutorial on how to nail it at our company. How to actually exceed expectations, how to land the interview. People have always been very fearful of sharing that information as if they follow it to the letter and they don't get the job, they're going to blame us. I think we're beyond that now. And I'm really curious to see. I've seen one company do it where they just said, here are the hacks to getting through our process. They interviewed the executive team. They interviewed people that got jobs recently, and they just talked and strung it together into this short video. I don't know. I think there's a real place for that. I think companies are going to have to dig in a little bit deeper and coach people through all of that in a video so they can feel more prepared, which wouldn't you want anyway? So when the person shows up on your doorstep for the interview, they're actually prepared, but haven't seen enough of that yet. So if any of your folks out there are doing it, I want to hear about it.
One of the feedbacks I've got, because we've done a number of webinars, is people just hate the barriers to entry. So even asking someone to put in an email address and the name and job title for a webinar, you wouldn't believe it, but people think that's too much effort. So which is crazy when you think about it, that they're getting some amazing content. All you have to do is put an email in there, because I think everyone's been, in the beginning, it was, oh, this is amazing. But now they've got about 1,000 companies emailing them every single month about loads of products that they have. So you can understand that. But I think what you just said, but doing it live or doing it on as a LinkedIn video without a webinar, like just go straight past that and just put it completely open.
Put it out there. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I
think JT is touching on some really interesting points, which is, 5 years ago, it was that you needed to sell yourself to the company, right? And we've talked about that before. And the company was sort of the bigger force in the conversation. And there was this concept that all the candidates wanted to work for the companies. Now it is far more of a balance, and maybe even tilting more toward the candidate having more of the power and the choice. And so now we're having conversation about having more and more content to sell to the candidate, to let the candidate know why you should come work here. But what I hear JT throwing out there that's really interesting is yet another shift, which is how, not just why.
Exactly.
But how you can come. And boy, that's so interesting, because once people come into our company, we spend so much time trying to help them understand how to succeed. Why wouldn't we start that pre-employment?
Exactly. Exactly the point. You said that so much better than I did.
There's going to be a lot of HR people playing talent bingo. Everyone's going to be paying. Everyone next week's going to be. You're going to see all of these. All of a sudden, LinkedIn is going to get a rush of content. Everyone's going to be like, "Whoa!"
Hashtag talent bingo.
Talent bingo. Let's do it. Was that what you had? What was your name for it, JT? Did I just butcher that? What was the name that you came up with?
No, we just call it employment branding bingo.
Oh, employment branding bingo.
Talent bingo is even better. See, again.
Yeah. Go on, Matt. Go for it.
Yeah, one thing I'll just jump in. We're talking a bit about authenticity and the reason why you want to have content that maybe not be as produced. The other thing is speed. So we're in a market now where change cycles are not 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You often have 1 or 2 quarters to either make or break your business in some cases. 80% with speed is a phrase I use here a lot, which is give me 80% of your best, but give it to me fast, because people don't expect your best. And we can get a lot more out using that methodology. So along with authenticity, I think speed is absolutely critical. The amount of people that I see wringing their hands trying to get to the perfect kind of content for their company, when they can just get out and post something, I don't think people understand yet. There's a high level of patience and tolerance for imperfect content. Actually, people prefer it nowadays. So
what we're doing right now, Matt.
To over-engineer, just get it out there. People love it.
Yeah, it's what we're doing right now as well, right? Like so many people say to me, "Oh, I'm like, we just press record." Most of the time, we have a topic and then we just go for it. We're not pressing cut every 10 seconds and re-recording it and going back and forth. And same with the podcast, same with everything else. Is just got to do it. Like, it doesn't.
I have a saying up in my office.
People aren't judging you as much as you think you are. People really don't care. I think a lot of people have this big perception that, oh, they're viewing every single one of our posts and they're gonna spot a spelling mistake. No one cares. That's really the reality. No one cares. They're probably not going to see your post anyway, because you post once a month. So you might as well just put it out there anyway. Shane tells me off every week for a spelling mistake that's on LinkedIn all the time. I get a text in the middle of the night saying, "Chris, you missed a comma there." I'm like, "Oh, Shane, come on, learn to let go." Yeah, definitely agree.
It's not fair to bust Shane when he doesn't have a voice for himself on the show. So
he just gave me a dirty look from across the room.
I respect that. And I would add, I love, Matt, what you said. We have a saying that I have up in my office, and it says, "Done is better than perfect."
I've got a good question, by the way, from one of the guests, listeners. Sorry, he said, if we did provide the candidates with a blueprint, like we discussed, if we sent a video out, wouldn't you fear that they would just tell the interviewers what they want to hear?
Well, first of all, I'm going to just jump in here. If you're a good recruiter
David.
Yeah, no, if you're a good recruiter and you know your behavioral interviewing techniques, you know what you're doing, you can see through BS. It's not hard to tell when somebody is giving you a load of crap. right? And so, but what I am telling you, and the reason I think this is important is how many candidates do you think are out there that would have been great for our company that bombed because they could have used a little bit of prepping, a little bit of information. And I say that as somebody who helps job seekers. I left the HR side, came over to the other side to try to level the playing field for these people because it was painful to watch them mess up and not get their dream job because they didn't have the right information or their tools. That's all we're looking to do here is just give people more ways to be successful. It's still on us to kick the tires, look under the hood and make sure that they're the right candidate. But let's give those people that aren't eloquent schmoozers a shot, just give them a chance. That's what we're talking about.
The interview process is, let's be honest, for the majority of people, unless you're shooting a show like this, is that really an accurate depiction of a day-to-day job?
No, definitely not.
Exactly. So why are we assessing their suitability for a job based on their ability to be articulate in a conversation?
Right. Exactly.
So I think to JD's point, it's, giving them an opportunity to have success. That's exactly what most of us are in this industry to do. I want people, I'm pulling for people in interviews to give me the best possible answers that they can, because I want to see them have success. And I think, I don't worry about giving people a leg up. As long as you give everyone the same opportunity, then you can differentiate individuals when you're doing a selection process.
I would add to that we do the same thing inside of a company, right? As soon as the person comes inside of a company, we work with them in advance to prepare them for a meeting and make sure that goes well. And if they're going to be meeting with a client, we certainly prep them on what kinds of things that client will be looking for and what kinds of questions they should expect to be asked. And, if we go shop a store, we tell people what to look for before. So why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? I think it's a great call.
I've had amazing people in interviews that have turned out to be terrible employees.
Oh, right.
And I'm sure loads of people have. I worked in sales, so there's quite a big turnover. So I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews as a sales manager. And some of the people that in the interview didn't do great in the interview, they were shy, they were nervous, ended up being some of the most successful, incredible employees I've ever had. But in a lot of cases, they would never have made it through. They've never made it through because it doesn't have that, as you said, that those people that just always prepared for the interviews to give you every single answer. For anything, so I actually get worried if I interview someone and they give me an amazing response for every single question. I sometimes sit back and go, I don't know about this. Yep. If you're almost you're too perfect. And if there is such a thing, I hope I'm making sense when I say that. Some people are a bit too prepared because I want people that I can develop. I'm looking for that too. I'm not looking for a finished article every single time. That doesn't exist as well. So why aren't companies doing this? That's the question. I think I know HR leaders that are spending millions of pounds on marketing campaigns and on all of these websites that we all know and exist, but they aren't doing the small things. Why is that? Is it a culture shift? What is it, guys? What do you think?
I think it's habit. Yeah. Well, that's absolutely true. Mindset starts first, but for me, I've found that it's habit. So we'll work with clients who say, I don't have time. I can't get myself up to speed. I can't carve out the time for this. And so what we do is we say, all right, we're going to be the habit. We're going to do it for you every day. And then we want you to see what happens at the end of 30 days. I always think about motivation. There's a new book out called Motivation Myth, and it's supposed to be that we have to get all sorts of motivated to do this. When in reality, motivation comes later after success. Any of us that have been super successful and motivated, we had a bunch of series of successes. We weren't feeling motivated, but those successes got us excited and motivated because we saw what was possible. So I think for all those HR folks out there that can't seem to get this going, you have to just dig in and say, you're not going to like it for a month, but every day post for 30 days, and at the end, it will be a habit. But more importantly, check your followers before, check your followers after. That will be where your motivation will come from. Nobody's had their little successes yet. And so that's why they're not building that habit.
They can't see what's,
they can't. But I mean, you said we had a conversation before we started today, Chris, right? We talked about it the last time I was on. I said, it is not rocket science. It's work it daily for a reason. It's such a boring, unsexy answer to your problem. But when you do it and you stick with it, all of a sudden it's like a switch flips, right? But you had to stick with it for a while. And that's the fact that people
aren't motivated. Everything though, isn't it? Like everything in life in general. Everything you do, you have to do it daily to get good at it. And no one just became good at something overnight. But for some reason, people don't apply that to other things such as social media or branding. As I said, when I spoke to you, it was lucky you said yes to come on the show. God knows why you said yes to me. At the time, I felt like I was nervous and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Hopefully I didn't show that on the show.
No, and then afterwards afterwards you were like, wow, that's it. That's what, well, that
Yeah,
was,
exactly.
she was pretty boring.
I was like, oh my God, it's done. But yeah, you get better and better at it. And you are right. I think or think about how much time you're wasting already.
Yeah.
You are thinking about it.
On what you're already doing anyway. All these activities you're already doing anyway, that you're wasting time there. Right. And so it's just a shift in focus, isn't it? And of course it's going to be a big shift in mindset as well, to change something that you've been doing for so long. You know, we're talking about a big shift in the way companies attract talent. It's complete opposite basically of what we're currently doing. So, well,
is the hardest part the shift, or is it more that we have, in many cases, the resources there? It's just that the resources are doing something different.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Right?
Anyway.
Yeah. And so, how do you help those resources, whether it's the recruiting team, the talent team, and the marketing team? And Matt, I love the post that you put up a week or two ago about marketing and HR and that marriage. It's so true. And how do you help those people let go of a lot of the things that we've been doing for years and years and years that were effective and aren't now as effective as what we need to be doing, and just change what they're doing, change how they're
innovate or die, Jill.
Innovate or die.
That's literally, it's the same thing with any businesses. I applied exactly the same process. You have to constantly innovate, otherwise you're going to be left behind. And by the time you react, it's too late. It's just gone.
And it's scary. It's not an easy thing to do.
And no one likes change, Jill. No one in the universe likes change. You don't go to someone and say, because change means more work in most cases. Whenever you make a shift and a change, that's adding more work to that. And no one wants to go, unless most people just like don't want more work added on top of what they want to do. And learning new things is uncomfortable. All of everything we've just spoken about is what stops people from doing it. It's a combination of everything. But I think when they get that first win and they see the results, which is a long way away, and you have to be willing to put in the grind and the hard work to get there, and then you'll achieve that. But yeah, it's a big ask.
Two things, Chris, I would just say. First thing, with respect to the mindset, I think we have to shift it. So I say this because, and I say this with full disclosure, I had the old mindset for the past 15 years of my career. So I lived this world where you put your head down, you're too busy. There's an established way of doing things. It's an accepted industry practice. So you don't innovate because you don't have the time, you don't have the bandwidth, and you're focusing on other priorities. I think as HR leaders, we need to step back for a second and critically evaluate. And I love what William Tincup said recently on one of our broadcasts, which was you need to assess your process in the context of a candidate's experience. And audit your process from the candidate's perspective so that you can provide critical feedback to yourself and make those necessary changes. And I think sometimes we can be guilty of looking for other reasons that explain some of the challenges we're talking about, whether it's external factors, macroeconomics, company limitations, budget. The reality is the things we talked about today, nothing we've mentioned today costs a single dollar. All it requires is a bit of your time and a willingness to take a chance. And if any of the folks have questions, follow-up questions from the audience, just leave them in the comment section on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Eventually, we're happy to answer those pieces, because it doesn't have to be a big, complicated program that costs $50,000 or $100,000. You can do this for a shoestring budget and start
contact
today.
JT. JT's doing it already.
We are.
If you need a shortcut, it wasn't planned on the show, but you've already got JT here. There's no excuses, guys, or us. Reach out to anyone who's doing it. So there's a reason why you have the followers that you have, JT, on LinkedIn, is because if you imagine if someone in the business did what you did, but they worked in an organization, how they could leverage the content and the network and the reach that you have, it'd be incredible.
Yeah.
I wish it was something fancy, right? Again, when they picked influencers, they literally told me I was like bottom of the list, and, we just need somebody that will, talk on this subject. So it was just writing about it all the time and engaging the audience, like you said, right? So learning, all the content comes from everybody that responds to comments and posts and that sort of thing. So that drives there. But yeah, that's all it is. It's not rocket science. It's just working it daily. But I want to say something, Matt, you said something really important about the candidate experience, and I'm such a big Tin Cup fan too. So that idea of assessing the process, we're really challenging this year for people to assess their candidate experience yet again.
Yeah.
Because I've seen companies in the last couple of years really adopt the VIP candidate experience, and they feel like they've totally got it, right? Okay, we've got it, but they're seeing a drop off. Well, guess what? Candidates have gotten sophisticated and savvy to what everybody's doing. You almost need to shake your process up again now in order to compete in the space and be different and be original. So it's another whole area. Just the moment you're comfortable with your process, like you said, it's time to flip it on its ear. You have to change it again. It means that actually you're starting to go down the other side of the slope there. So I love that you said that, because I feel like people should be assessing their process all the time.
Because you've seen it was like this for so long, and now it's just for so many years it was exactly the same. There was no shift whatsoever, and then something like, I don't know, Glassdoor, for example, comes along. All of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And you've seen companies panic on there. I'm not going to mention names, but I even had one of my ex CEOs. He came to me and was like, "We just try and gamify Glassdoor." Like he was like messaging employees in the company saying, "Can you write this about us and this about me?" And I was like, "This is the worst thing you could ever ask," because everyone in the whole company was like, "What was?" So talk about how to ruin your culture. Up until that point, it was pretty good.
Give us a reason to write something good.
And guess what? When I left, I didn't write a great comment on there either. When I left, he made me think maybe I should leave a comment on that, because I know this is all nonsense that I'm seeing on here. But this is not an anomaly, what I'm saying, by the way. I know many companies that I've heard through Connect that are trying to gamify these types of sites like Glassdoor to try and get an upper hand. Again, people will see through it. They're not silly. They'll have a conversation with someone. They'll meet again, and even if you do get them in the door, it's a waste of your money, because you'll go through all of that time, all of that to get them in, and then they'll leave anyway. So it's you'll lose it.
If I'm on Glassdoor and I don't see a negative review on a company, I know more often than not it's
exactly. It's so true.
JT, what's the most common when you speak to the candidate, because you're on both sides, which is really cool, because you're working with a company and you're working with a candidate. What's the most common thing that detracts them from
attracts them
and detracts them? That's something that puts them off from working with a company, just out of curiosity.
Yeah. So no, that's a great question. If they don't get a sense that they can figure out how they will be immediately successful to the organization, if they don't clearly see how they're going to alleviate a pain or solve a problem and essentially be the hero in that role, it detracts them. People are driven by such a sense of purpose in work right now that's what gets them to want to take the job. Yeah, benefits, perks, all that stuff is great. They want to get, great rewards for their effort. But honestly, the most attracting thing is not feeling a connection to the job. And that connection really is, how am I the hero? So
sense
that's why
purpose.
It is. And that's why you have to keep coming back and explaining to them, this is how you'll be the hero in the job. And this is how you become the hero, because there's a lot of ways you could do it, but our company wants you to do it this way. We see heroes who do these things. You can have 10 account manager jobs, but each company's definition of what a successful account manager is different. It's your job to explain how you become the hero in that account manager role on our terms as the employer. And when you do that and you give them that path, guess what? Then they can do it. They can knock it out of the park. And this is what gets people excited about jobs. Great example. Everybody says they want to work for Google, Apple, all these big companies. Yes, they have great reputations, but all the education they've done over the years, everyone knows how to be successful there. Everyone knows what they stand for, what they believe in, what they look for in a candidate. They have made it completely transparent and authentic, as has been mentioned here, in terms of how to be successful at the company. And that's all people are looking for.
Perfect. Well, I think we should end it on that note, because our half an hour show is never half an hour. I think I'm going to have to change this up, though. I honestly feel like these topics that we get into, it's impossible in half an hour. Guys, let us know if you want us to make this a longer show, because we originally started off with half an hour. Maybe it's just us loving to listen to our own voices. I don't know. We'll find out. Well, look, really appreciate you guys joining us. JT, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. You all are so amazing at what you do. Thank you for creating this. People are so lucky to have you every week.
Thank you for being with us.
Video testimonial on the website, guys. JT's laughing, but she's going to see it.
I will.
She's going to see a post of that video right there in a few days time. What is it like to work with Chris? But okay, on a serious note, thank you all for listening as well, getting involved. And JT, where can we learn more about you before we go?
Yeah, so definitely head over to workitdaily.com and certainly LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn, connect with me there.
And you've got a workshop coming up as well.
We do. We are actually doing the 3 hottest trends in attracting talent for 2018.
Perfect.
So yeah, we're talking about the stuff that's working now as opposed to isn't working anymore. The stuff you used to do doesn't work. So what do you got to do now?
Perfect. I'll link that in the description. Well, apart from that, I'll see you all next week. Let us know again what topic you'd like us to focus on, and we'll make sure we'll make it happen. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week, and see you later.
Ciao, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.